My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of Lightyear. And when I heard they were making a Buzz Lightyear movie, my first reaction was, why? But then I stopped and thought about it, and I'm like, you know what? They could actually use this to make a really cool original sci-fi movie, and the main character just happens to be Buzz Lightyear. But then I saw the trailer and I thought it looked awful, and the more I think about it, just the fact that they're making a movie about a guy in a movie that exists in a fictional character that we see the toy of, like, it just feels like a huge stretch. It just shows how they're really running out of originality. But that said, I thought the exact same thing about the Cruella de Vil movie, and I'm like, this is the worst idea ever. And it didn't have to be a Cruella de Vil movie, but for what that movie was, I thought it was really good. It was stylish, it was entertaining, and it had a great performance from Emma Stone. So maybe that could be the case here, and it is most certainly not. I think I'm going to name this video, Lightyear is the worst Pixar movie, because that's the way I honestly feel. But that said, I did do that last week with Jurassic World Dominion, but this really is the worst Pixar movie. Let's try to talk about some things I did like though. The animation in this movie is good, but I also think that it's at the point with Disney and Pixar movies where they're all beginning to look way too similar, and it just feels like they're not doing anything new with the animation. Like, I really enjoyed how Luca looked last year because it didn't look like a typical Pixar movie. And now we got Lightyear and it just looks like every other one. You know, a few weeks ago I watched the movie Wolfwalkers, which is just a fantastic animated movie, which should have won Best Animated Picture. Don't get me started on that. But you watch that movie and the animation is vibrant and it's colorful and it's just so beautiful to look at. And then you watch a movie like this, and lots of people put lots of hard work into it. And I respect their commitment. And it doesn't look bad, but it just doesn't look as interesting. I think lots of this movie looks really flat and colorless as well, which doesn't help this movie. And that was one of my positives. But another positive of this movie is that I do like the message behind it. It kind of reminds me of Meet the Robinsons about how you should keep moving forward, and I like how it comes into play here. And I like what they're trying to do in the character arc they're trying to give Buzz, but it just doesn't work. There's so many moments in this movie that you can see the potential in, but the overall execution is completely lacking. Like, there's a scene early on which should have had the same emotional weight that the beginning of Up had, and it just made me feel nothing. There's so many moments that should have had any bit of weight to them, but just none of them did. I've just found it impossible to get invested in this movie. It kind of reminds me of Thor Ragnarok, because if you look at Thor Ragnarok, there's a lot of things that happen in that movie. Like, Thor's dad dies, he loses his hammer and his powers, and then he gets thrown away to this planet that's in the middle of nowhere as his home world gets overtaken. He then eventually uses an eye and watches as his home world is blown to bits. And not a single moment of that movie do you actually feel the dramatic weight that's on display. I get what they're trying to do. I see the potential in this story, but the execution just falls completely flat. And also, this movie certainly didn't need to be a Buzz Lightyear movie. It could have been this astronaut character. Certainly didn't need to be Buzz. And I think Chris Evans is absolutely terrible in this movie. Like, easily his worst performance. I do like him as an actor. I think he's great as Captain America. I think he's really good in Scott Pilgrim versus the World, Cellular, Push. Snowpiercer is one of his best performances. But just because you're a good actor doesn't mean you're a good voice actor, and I think that's the case here. He just brings no bit of life or personality to Buzz. He just feels completely flat as a character, and I also thought the supporting cast was awful as well. You know, no one stands out. There are generic characters that we've seen other versions of in tons of other movies. You know, there used to be a TV show of Buzz Lightyear, and I haven't seen that TV show in like, it's gonna be close to 2 decades. Like, it's been a very, very long time. But I still remember some of the supporting characters in it. There was that big red dude, and then there was the robot with the binocular eyes, and then there was that blue girl with the red hair who could walk through walls. And I haven't seen that show in years, but I can tell you right now, it had more memorable and better supporting characters than this movie does. You've got Kiki Palmer, who I guess does a fine job, but I think her character is just so generic and flat. And then you've got Peter Son as Socks, who is a character that everyone is losing their minds for. And Disney has always had these animal sidekick characters. Like, you go back to The Little Mermaid and there's Flounder and Sebastian. You go to Cinderella, you've got the Three Mice. You go to Aladdin, you've got Abu, so on and so on. It's always been a Disney thing. And yes, those animal sidekick characters are part of a formula, but they were so memorable and great that I didn't even care because I saw Abu. I didn't see animal sidekick character. And this time I saw right through the character and I saw exactly what it is, and it's them using the formula to try to have a hilarious animal sidekick character to sell tons of toys. And that's all Socks ever felt like to me. You also got Taika Waititi, who I guess is fine for what he's given to do. You've got Dale Seuss, who's in this movie. Yuzu Adub, who doesn't have much to do. And then you've got James Brolin as Zog, and I think he's really bad in this movie. And without giving anything away, Zog is a terrible villain. I had a prediction about him a few weeks ago, I told my family, and I ended up being completely wrong because I didn't think they were going to go as stupid as they went here. The way they handled this character is just awful. Like, they treat him like a complete joke, and I just wish that, you know, you tease a villain and just deliver on that villain. You don't always need to have a surprise in the movie. That's all I'll say. And everything about the last act of this movie is just awful. It's reliant on a reveal and just, it doesn't even make a bit of sense because, oh my goodness, how do I word this without giving anything away? In the trailer, it shows that Buzz Lightyear skips ahead of time because of the way time works in space. You see it in Interstellar and you see it here. And the movie just seems to forget that. That's all I'll say. It's hard to talk about without going in depth, but maybe I'll do a spoiler review one day. Maybe not. Probably not. I don't really want to talk about this movie again. And then you've also got just an incredibly cliche story. Like I said, I can see what they're going for, and some of what they're going for is great, but everything we get on the surface is just more generic Disney stuff that we've seen a billion times before. There's nothing about it that really stands out. It also lacks any bit of energy. I found it to be remarkably dull and boring. And the jokes in this movie are just so unfunny. I didn't laugh a single time. There was one joke in the movie, and I'm just watching the scene. I'm like, you know what? This is going to be the end credits scene. And sure enough, I was completely correct. There's even this one joke in the very first scene of the movie with Bill Hader, and just the execution of it is, like, baffling terrible. I'm just like, did people write this and this made it to all these different meeting rooms and people thought this scene in the beginning was a good idea? Because it certainly wasn't. And the truth is, I do hear lots of good things about this movie. People are like, oh, it's a fun summer blockbuster. The truth is, every single one of those people is going to forget about this movie in 5 years. People watch it now and they're like, yeah, it's alright, I had a decent enough time in it, and then they're never going to think about it again. Like, this movie is forgettable in every sense. And even the way it ends, it just ends on way too clean of a note, and just nothing about this movie really worked for me. You know, there was a time where Pixar was just the best of the best. You look at their one from 1995 to 2010, it's untouchable. It is such a perfect one. I even love A Bug's Life, and I even enjoy The First Cars. That one is really damn good. And just in the past decade, like they've had some bad movies, they've had some great movies, they've had mainly movies in the middle, but it's just they're not the same company they used to be. I used to be excited for a movie because it was Pixar or Disney alone. Like that was enough to get me excited. And now those days are long gone. I saw the trailer for Strange Worlds and I thought it looked absolutely terrible, and it's just kind of sad that the people who used to be at the top of their game and just deliver constantly amazing movies are not just giving us some of the most dull and generic movies that you're just not going to remember. Like I said, there is some potential here, and the animation is good, but just this movie is awful. I absolutely hated watching it. There's nothing about it that really stands out. The execution of any good ideas this movie does have just ruins them, and the rest of the movie is just as generic and safe and as bad as it gets. It's never funny, the action is never good, the characters are completely forgettable. It is just a bad movie with a truly awful last act. Like, the villain in this movie just, it's so bad. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and give Lightyear a 2 out of 10. You know, whenever I see an animated movie in theaters recently, I keep getting the trailer for that Michael Cera dog movie and the League of Super Pets, and my goodness, do those two movies just look atrocious. Like, just truly awful looking movies. But I also got the trailer for Avatar 2 in 3D again, and man, it never fails to take away my breath. But have you seen Lightyear? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin